Have your attention, please. The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go. Bass in your face. Bass in your face.
Hey guys, it's Mizzy and I'm a mixed girl in a mixed up world. Welcome to the live show tonight. Thank you for joining me. It's warm. I got to warn you, if it gets too warm up in my room, I'm going to have to end it because my room is upstairs and this room gets very, very, very hot. I had the AC on for a few hours, but I don't know how long it's going to stay cool. Luckily, I have a fan over me, so it's blowing some cool air on me. So how is everyone doing today? I'm doing pretty good. I know we're up against Melanie Little, but that's okay. A small group of people in here. I love it. I just love to talk with people and, you know, talk about Sandra's case. So thank you for coming. Hi, how are ya? How are you doing tonight? From Ireland. Hi, how are ya? Hi, how's it going? Hello. I have to keep leaning forward because I forgot I need to change the battery in my mouse. So I'm going to be like that, though. Sorry if I'm all up in your face. Welcome from Arizona. Thank you for joining us. I'll let a few more of you guys trickle in. Hello from Australia. Hey, girl. Hey, Boozy. How's it going? You and I got to do a show at some point. You know, a girls' night. So tonight I'm going to give some updates on what's going on with Sandra's case. And I have a little presentation to go through. And then I'm going to talk about my feelings on the Karen Read acquittal. I didn't put a lot of eye makeup on because I hope I don't get emotional because, you know, talking about it gets me emotional. So I'm going to try not to cry. It's funny because if you look at my makeup, I have to put a lot of blush on because it washes me out. And tonight's like one of the first times I got my lighting right. So now you can actually see the definition in my face and I look like I'm a porcelain doll with the crazy cheek makeup, but that's okay. That's how I roll. I like a lot of makeup, so I meant to do it. Hey, how's it doing? How's it doing? What? How's it going? I'm a little wonky today because of the heat and also my neck is killing me and like I'm trying to keep as I always am, trying to keep a migraine away. So my energy was starting to get low, so I had to get a Mountain Dew because I don't drink coffee. I love the smell of coffee. I used to love making it when I worked at Store 24, but my tummy does not like the coffee. Okay. So first I want to start with the updates on Sandra's case. So in Sandra's case, let's start with Robert Devine. Robert Devine has to do a third day of testimony in his post-commission. So once I find that out, I'll let you guys know. Some of us might go down there and, say hi to him for that. I will let you know when it's happening and what we make plans for. On Tuesday, sorry, I'm smacking my lips. On Tuesday, Joshua Heel has his first day before the post-commission, and I'm going to be streaming it. It's on the 24th it starts at 9:30. I'll be on at 9:15 to get going. I'm not 100% sure how much Sandra's case factors into Josh Hale's post-commission. He was doing some shady stuff at the Abington Police Department aside from Sandra, but I'm sure it has a little to do with Sandra's case, especially since the new police chief in Abington is a former Stoughton sergeant named Bonnie. And so I'm hoping that Sandra does factor into it. So I'm hoping we find out Tuesday what exactly was put before the post commission. They only started showing, you could watch them, but I only started knowing that you could stream them. I'll say it like that, or watch them. So back when, right around when we saw the last hearing for William Farwell, and that was before I was streaming. So yeah, I'm gonna be streaming that. Hopefully it goes right this time. I've had a couple go right and a couple go bad, so let's hope that goes right. Yeah, Boozy, I agree. It's definitely a factor. And even if it's not a full factor, I'm sure they'll bring it in to bolster their argument. He was doing a lot of shady crap there. So I don't know how much Sandra plays into it, but I'm sure it's part of it, because how can they not? How can they ignore the Sandra portion of it, even though that most of it was before he was a police officer, the stuff with Sandra, but he also lied at first to the Stoughton, when they were doing the Stoughton internal report. So he acted like he did nothing wrong. So it has to do something with it, But regardless, I'm going to stream it because he is a portion of Sandra's case, and we need to stay on top of him too, So, and then finally, Matthew Farrell has a hearing on July 1st. We're still trying to figure out if it's in person or if it's going to be online only for select people. But regardless, Barb and I have to talk, but I think I might go down there regardless and do a mini standout, even if it's just me. I think us having a presence would be good. So I kind of think I might go down there regardless. But I will let you guys know. I will put a flyer out once I get a little more information. We're trying to figure that out. But make sure you check, the Justice for Sandra Birchmore. We have our website, the Facebook group, and also I'm on X. And I'll be putting stuff on like TikTok. I'm going to start doing a lot more TikToks on Sandra. I know I got lazy, so I wasn't making as many TikToks, but especially with Karen's case blowing up on TikTok, a lot of people are starting to follow me, and I've been getting, my video of Sandra walking in and out of the apartment, and then Matthew walking in and out of the apartment jumped to over 30,000 views and throughout this the Karen Reed trial. So I feel like it's something for me to start doing. So, okay, I want to bring up, let me start. Okay. And I want to give a shout out to the replay crew. You guys are awesome. I'm so thankful for everybody who's here. But the replay crew is amazing, and you guys support me so much. I know a lot of times bigger creators are out there streaming, and you guys come and watch me after, and I appreciate you all, just like I appreciate everybody in the chat who is here, who's joining me. I just saw a question. I did a whole stream on the DNA. I can talk about it today, but I implore you to go back and watch my last stream, because we had an in-depth conversation about it. I look at it like this, Sorry, my shirt is like, and this is a tank top. I'm not wearing a bra. It's just hot up here. When it comes to the DNA, I was shocked when it first came out, obviously, because it was a shocking thing. But after I had a little time to think about it, the DNA is not a factor. It absolutely does not matter. You know, this case is about Sandra being murdered, and regardless of the DNA, he still went there to murder her. And the reason why he went there, yes, the DNA might have been a portion of it, but you got to think of it. He thought he was the father. She was telling him he was the father at that point. So it's not really a factor on what happened the night she was murdered. The DNA, on January 20th, a friend of hers called the Stoughton Police Department, and Sandra owed them money. The full story is she owed that person money, and she wasn't paying them back. So that person called the Stoughton Police Department to try to get their money back, and they told her, sorry, ma'am, this is a civil case. And so with the DNA, it comes into, that's just a small factor of it. They said, we can't do anything for you. And she said, well, tell Matthew Farwell to make his girlfriend give me back my money. And that sent Matthew spiraling, because that meant his secret was getting out. So it was more about Farwell's secret than the DNA, than the baby. The baby was just like another factor on it. Sorry, I could see my tag sticking out. The DNA was just another factor. The baby was just another factor. But that phone call and his secret getting out, that's why the FBI were able to arrest him for murdering a witness, because she was a witness against him, and his secret was getting out, that she was telling friends what age she was when they first hooked up. Statutory raped her. Let's be wrong. Let's be factual about it. It was starting to get out there. So that's what he was worried about. It wasn't the baby. It was that his secret was getting out. So that's why he did what he did. So yeah, I was shocked. I was, it took me a minute to, gather my thoughts. But then once I thought about it, I was like, you know what? It has no bearing on this case. They're going to definitely make it a factor in this case, but they're going to try to smear her. But hey, how's it going? They're going to try to smear her so much. But the fact is that these men did what they did. They can try to rip her apart. It doesn't take away from what they did. And I believe that they will put a psychologist on there who focuses on the effects of grooming and what it does to somebody, especially when it's a child at a young age. And they will show why Sandra might have made some of the decisions that she made, why she would have stayed when she became an adult. And the thing about abuse, and especially grooming, just because somebody turns 18 doesn't mean, it's not like, okay, they're 18, peace out. That's not how it works. The person who was grooming this person, they still have this person under their thumb. That's part of the high of this person. It's about this person being controlled by them. They're not going to give that up just because somebody turns 18. And you got to remember, Sandra looked like she was 4'10" or 4'10" or 4'11". Barb, my brain isn't working right now. I think it's 4'10". But she was so tiny, and she looked so young. So even, as she got older, she looked young. At the age of 16, she looked like she was like 13, 14. At the age of 18, she looked like she was 15. So at the age of 23, That's what I thought, Barb, 410. She looked like she was, she looked like she was a teenager. So that's part of the high. They could fulfill their fantasies of, at the age she was an adult, of being with a child, because she looked like a child. It's disgusting, but that's how you got to think of how they're thinking. Let me see. Anyone believing this can't happen to anyone at any age is choosing not to see. Coercive control is not age restrictive. Exactly. And I'm so thankful that, these things are starting to get out there and starting to be believed by a greater portion of the public. More of the public needs to see this, and I have some videos that I've pulled up. I'm not going to show them today. I'll do it on another stream about grooming, to educate people more on grooming. And after we finish talking about this topic, I'm going to tell you what I plan on doing going forward with my channel. I plan on bringing in people to talk about it, because it's not, it's, like women who are abused by their husbands, or even men who are abused by their wives, they use that control. They use that I cannot say that word tonight. Coercive control to get their hold on somebody, and it's like Kim said, it's not, or KM said, it's not age restrictive. It doesn't go away because Sandra turned 18. It continued, and it would still be continuing right now if Sandra was alive. But unfortunately, that secret was getting out. So that's why he did what he did. It's not, I hate to jump into the mind of, somebody as sick as he is, but that's partly why he did what he did. Yes, the baby was a factor, but it was only a slice of it. So, going forward with this channel, to work things out with, things are getting a little crazy on the Sandra Birchmore pages, especially since Mark Betterow said on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, if you want to find out anything about Sandra Birchmore, ask Mizzy. So I figured out that's why my name was being I was getting so many follows. And so, which I'm thankful for, because that means more people will see what we have to say and what we have to put out about Sandra's case. So I'm going to be doing my regular show Monday night, maybe 6:15 or 7. It'll be one of those hours. And then if I decide to do it once in a while, I'll do a second show, maybe a Thursday night or a Wednesday night, so I can cover another case. Like Brandon Embry is going to be my first case. I want to be able to, put out content every week, and to keep being able to answer your questions about Sandra's case at least once a week. And then, do a second show every once in a while, not all the time. With my health, I can't do, a lot of shows a week. I can't be, somebody who's doing shows 5 or 6 days a week. And also I need to leave open the chance that I am going to go on another show. Speaking of another show, I was invited to come on Justice Served on Wednesday to talk about the DNA. If people who don't know, that's Linda Kinney Bowden and Michael. Oh my God, my brain just forgot his last name. His name, Michael. He's been down at the buffer zone a lot lately. And Linda happens to be the wife of Dr. Michael Bowden, who did the first autopsy review on Sandra and, helped elevate her case. Yes, Bryant. It was on the tip of my tongue, and I didn't want to say it wrong. Michael Bryant. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, Michael. Thank you, Andy. Michael Bryant. Oh, and Beth, you said it too. So, yeah, they're great. I've been on their show before, and it was a wonderful conversation. And I mean, they're both rock stars, and it was wonderful to talk to them. And it helps getting Sandra's case out there. My channel's so small, we still have to take the opportunities for me to get out there and talk to other channels. It's my channel's growing pretty fast. But like I said, we always have to be able to take the opportunities for me to get out there and talk to other channels, because they're, people who follow me are people who already know. People who are watching their channel might not know about Sandra's case, or they know just a little bit of Sandra's case. So I got to take those type of opportunities. But coming up in the near future, I already have some guests line up. I just got to work it out when I'm going to talk to them. My first guest is going to be Peter Murphy. He's a former Canton sergeant, and I really wanted to start with him, not just because I love Peter, because he's amazing, but because I want to start with the day, kind of where the investigation starts, the day that Sandra was found, and, what he thinks that the Canton police did right and what he thinks the Canton police did wrong. Because there are some things that the Canton police did right, like, excuse me one second. I know I'm choking on saying the Canton police did anything right. Going over there for the wellness check, checking to see if her car was there because she wasn't answering the door. Kind of like the early things that they did were right. I just think once the Massachusetts State Police came into the picture, that's when things started going wrong. But they also started, I got to pivot a little bit. They also started the mythology of Sandra killing herself. So that they hold a huge piece of that. And that's one of the reasons why I am so angry at the Canton Police Department, because, I feel like the 3 officers who initially showed up did right. I just think once they found Sandra, that is where they went wrong. But I want to get into that with Peter, see how he would have handled it differently, what he would have done, and if the Massachusetts State Police were pushing the Canton Police into anything, because that's what I've been told, that they were saying it was one thing, and some of the officers who were on the scene later, went to their supervisor and said it wasn't what it was. So, and also how Officer Nix, who's a piece of shit, told Sandra's aunt, Darlene. He's a scumbag, and I would love to kick him in the nuts for it. I don't want to, I'm not threatening him. It's me saying I would love to do it, because the way he told the aunt, I'm not threatening him. Don't hit me with a charge for threatening an officer. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying metaphorically, I would love to verbally have some words with him, but metaphorically, I'd like to do that. Can't police, I'm not trying to, I'm not going to come up to your officer and do that. I'm not threatening him. I just need to make that clear, because I know how much you guys like to, put witness intimidation charges on people. So that's something I want to talk to with him, of how you properly tell a family member that their loved one is deceased, and if they actually thought it was her doing this to herself, how that is handled. Because to me, that should be handled with very delicate hands. You don't say it the way that man said it to her family members. Oops, wrong one. Mizzy, merely thinking of nut crushing. I'll allow it. Yes, it's just something like that I'm thinking in my head. I'm not gonna, I can barely lift my leg enough to walk up and down stairs. I'm not gonna be able to lift my leg enough to do that. So Well, good news, Mizzy, none of them are witnesses anymore. Well, they kind of are, though. A lot of those people are witnesses in Turtle Boy's case. So they're still witnesses. But I feel like they can be handled differently, I feel like like what they did the other day, standing out right in front of Chris's store with the signs of saying, Chris resign. To me, they should have been able to do that anyway. You are going to your elected, I almost said statement, selectmen and saying, we want you to resign. Just like how we went to Morrissey's office a week and a half ago and said, Morrissey, it's time for you to resign. That's one of the things I want to focus on too going forward, is concentrating on obviously pushing Sandra's case, but we need to really, really start pushing Morrissey to resign. We need to get that out to the public. We need, more people in Norfolk County to see it, that he needs to resign. The amount of money that he spent on trying Karen Read, especially in this second trial, is ridiculous. Nicole, is Fanning involved too? Fanning's the major player in this case. Like, you think of Michael Proctor in Karen's case, that's Fanning in this case. And Fanning's a former Stoughton police officer, so he should have never been on this case. He knew Robert Devine. He worked with him, and he probably knew the boys when they were younger, when they were going through the Explorers program, and he most likely knew them. I could say that he most likely, especially Matthew, because Matthew was a detective. They work hand in hand with the troopers that investigate stuff. So I believe he knew Matthew, and he probably knew William too. So, yep, yes. Whoops. Fanning and Yuri are besties too. Ugh, I agree. Yes, he's the one who muttered that. Hey, Mizzy, we met at Michael Morrissey's office recently. Is Matthew Farwell hearing July 1st still happening? Will it be open to the public? Yes, it's still happening at this point. We're trying to find out if it's going to be open to the public. But regardless, I might go down there. So if people want to come join me to stand out in front of the building, you can come join me. I will post 100% if I'm going. I just need a couple days to get things all figured out. Oops. Mizzy, girls who have this happen tend to stop emotionally maturity. Exactly. At the age of their abuse beginning, I'd say I'd see it. Patient off event, end up asking, sorry, I can't see, my eyes are blurred. Would hold their hand as they spoke. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry that, that you've had to do with that with other patients. And that's what people have said about Sandra. Sandra was a very, very smart girl. I'll answer this question in 1 second. Sandra was a very, very smart girl, but that's one of the things that people tend to say, is that she was a little immature. So yeah, you can kind of see through some of her actions and some of the things that she did. But Sandra was a very smart girl. Like, every family member who I speak to, they tell me how smart she was. It's just when a child goes through that trauma, that's what happens. It'll be down. His hearing is at the Moakley courthouse down in Boston, the federal courthouse. So Okay. I think I said all I had to say about stuff. I want to start my presentation. Okay. So when you think about an iceberg, let me start that over and make it bigger for you guys. There's no sound to it. I'm going to talk over it. It's just something for you guys to watch while I'm talking. Okay, that's better. Yes. Okay, here we go. When an iceberg is formed when a sheet of ice is cleaved off of my brain just went blank. You guys know it's cleaved off of. Anyway, an iceberg is noticed on the top, but the cold darkness underneath is what we don't see. And I'm using this metaphor because it is what breeds corruption. It's the cold darkness that is hidden underneath. And Sandra is at the tip of the iceberg. This photo that's coming up is the epitome of corruption. It's Michael Morrissey with Robert Devine. And I suspect that Robert Devine knows Morrissey's secrets. This is Matthew Farwell. He was allowed to go in and out of Sandra Birchmore's apartment. He was there for about 29 minutes. He crept in and crept out. And he walked out into the cold, dark night on February 1st. And then he went to where his child was being born. Look at his eyes. They're black because he just got done murdering Sandra. This is his brother brother William, and Robert Devine, and they're part of the abuse of Sandra. Where is their arrest? When are they going to be taken out? The Stoughton police failed Sandra. They allowed the abuse of Sandra to continue in darkness. The town of Stoughton did not supervise their police officers properly. They did not supervise the program that they were running. The Canton police are complicit in Sandra's death investigation. They are part of the problem of saying it was suicide. The Massachusetts State Police covered up Sandra's murder and continue to cover it up by saying it's still a suicide. Can you imagine that after the FBI has already approached them? The Norfolk DA's office is corrupt. These victims are not being served by Michael Morrissey and the Massachusetts State Police. John O'Keefe has not been served. I want to pause right here. That picture before was Just en route. For those who don't know, Just en route, who had mental health issues, he was having an episode and he went to a hospital in Boston, and the security guard called the police. The police came. He had a plastic paintball gun, plastic, clear, see-through. And it was, when you see it, there is no way a police officer could think it was an actual gun. And they shot him, I believe, 15 times. He got in his car to get away from them because he was just shot 15 times. And, you know, when you're shot 15 times, you might not be thinking straight. There was a slow speed chase. They did a pit maneuver and disabled his car, injuring him more. When he came to a stop, he got out of the car and started limping down the street and fell to the ground. A former medic came and approached him to try to help him. And then the police approached and told her to get away from him so she wouldn't get shot. And Justin was shot 31 more times. He used to like to say just one because his name is Just On, and he would add the E. So we're all just one. This young man had a death sentence because he had a mental illness. Somebody having a mental illness episode, it shouldn't be a death sentence. It's not. The mental illness isn't a death penalty. But you know what Michael Morrissey's office did? He cleared the officers in 30 days. Think of that. Rich Schiffer, who left rubber duckies around Canton, got a longer investigation than just en route. That's insanity. That is insanity. And like his sister Jen likes to say, I fully agree with her. She brings this sign to all standouts. They cannot investigate themselves. They should not be. And then this Enrique Delgado Garcia, his case. Think of his case. Sorry, guys, I'm going to leave it on this face for a little bit. Think of Enrique's case. They did this to one of their own. Yes, he's having an investigation, and I hope the investigators in his case are doing right, and it doesn't end up like these other cases that we've been talking about. Because if Enrique's case is relegated to the shadows, just like Sandra's case, John's case, and Just en Route's case, I don't know what's going to happen. But we need to make sure that we're still continuing to speak out. This is the face of corruption. I showed you before and I said the same thing. This is the face of corruption. And I'm going to show you a bunch of other faces of corruption. Michael Morrissey needs to resign. This is Trooper Fanning, corrupt. Nicholas Garino, corrupt. Lieutenant Gallagher, corrupt. Lank, corrupt. Rafferty, corrupt. Thankfully, she's out. Dever. Let's talk about Dever. Hold on. I'll leave it here. Dever, who I still like to call diva because she is a diva and not the fun kind. She's not like a Whitney Houston or Mariah Carey where they can get up there and sing their asses off. No, she's a diva who thinks that she can act any way she wants. And we just let it go. No, we can't let it go. And this man, I'm gonna come up a little bit for this one. This man right here is the Boston Police Commissioner. And this man right here proved the corruption in Karen Read's case. He was able to put the corruption on display in an ongoing fashion in the Karen Read case. When he brought Dever into his office and said the Boston Police Department backs you, and I want you to do the right thing. The right thing was to not talk about what she saw in that garage when it came to Berkowitz and Higgins. He didn't care about the Boston cop on the lawn. He cared about his buddy, the Boston cop in the house. Why was John O'Keefe sacrificed as a Boston cop? Why didn't the Boston police back him? I thought it was back the blue. I thought there was a thin blue line. That thin blue line was not afforded to Officer John O'Keefe, was it? It was afforded to the Boston cop in the house and the ATF agent who was visiting that house. Why is Brian Albert's life more important than John's life? I'd like to know, and I'd like this answer from him. Because the Boston Police Department abandoned Officer John O'Keefe. Boston police officer John O'Keefe. And he proved the corruption right on the stand for the world to see. It was all in front of us. For her saying, my job depends on what I say on the stand, because this man said, do the right thing. The right thing wasn't for Officer John O'Keefe. It was for that wall of silence that the blue likes to build up. Now, I'm not one of those people who are ACAB, all cops are bad. That's not me. But I want the system to be changed. The system that we are currently functioning under is not working for the people. It's not working for the people at all. And actually, before I start play again, it's time that the different communities come together and start talking so we can all rise up together and tell them no more. We don't want crappy investigators. We don't want crappy police officers moving up in the system and becoming bad TO officers, training officers, bad detectives. Because it's not just the beat cops. As you can clearly see, this goes all the way to the top. This is the commissioner of the Boston Police Department. They never bring rookies in to see them unless they did something very wrong or they did something very good. Or they want to put pressure on them. And this is clearly what happened in this instance. I think it's just disgusting what they did to Officer John O'Keefe. Let me go back to my presentation. Tully, face of corruption. Buchanan, face of corruption. Proctor, face of corruption. And Fanning's in there again because I fucking hate this guy. These are some of their victims. This man needs to resign. Michael Morrissey needs to resign. And the people of Norfolk County need to make him resign. And these people who are under that golden dome need to understand that we are watching, the world is watching, and we're not going anywhere. We are not going to allow these things to be in the dark anymore. We're going to keep putting the pressure on them. I know for a fact I'm not going to stop. I hope everybody in this chat feels the same way. And it doesn't matter if you live here because, the eyes of the world are watching the state of Massachusetts. And the state of Massachusetts needs to start acting accordingly. Nobody wants a family member to go through what Just En Route's family has gone through, what the O'Keefe family has gone through, what Sandra Birchmore's family has gone through, and what all of their supporters, friends, and distant family, cousins and uncles, everybody, their former teachers, anyone who knew these victims. We want to make sure that these people are afforded justice, because that's what these people are hired to do, to give justice to victims. And that's why I always say every victim deserves justice. Yes, Barb, exactly. Justice for Sandra Birchmore. Hi, Cheez-Its. Welcome from the UK. Thanks for joining us again. Good to see you. So I want to talk about my feelings on the Karen Reed case, but before I do that, if there are any questions, I apologize if I missed any while I was talking. I couldn't look at that and get my thoughts out. Nicole, what is color for Sandra? Is it blue? It's actually light blue. We call it baby blue because it's for the baby, and we're not meaning that it was a boy. It's just for the baby and Sandra. So it's we call it baby blue, light blue. That's why if you go to our standouts, I tend to wear a lot, or when I go to speak somewhere, I tend to wear blue or light blue. So before we get to my feelings on the Karen Reed trial, or the conclusion to Karen Reed's trial, let's, if there's any questions for you that you guys want to ask, let's. Karen's case opened eyes to how characters are built disguised as low to serve others in criminal needs. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we would all take it back and have, Officer John O'Keefe be alive, but because this situation has arisen, Karen's case has shown a lot of people what some other communities already knew, and it shows how far some police officers will go to protect other police officers, and it's not right. A police officer who does crimes is a criminal, and they should be treated as such. Yeah, Morrissey, I mean, what Boozy just said, he proudly walks in parades, though. He does. He has no shame. He is out there like he's like king shit of the world. He thinks he's he has no issues. We need to make him our issue. We need to keep the press on him. We need to, I look at it. We need to take free Karen Reed. Come join us too. But also, we need to pivot to Morrissey needs to resign. And we know there's money that people are willing to donate at times. That's something that might be worthwhile. Maybe get some billboards up around Canton and Norfolk County, the different counties of Norfolk County. I mean, different towns in Norfolk County. Maybe on the board, put a picture of him saying, excuse me, my lips are wicked dry. Maybe put on the board saying how much money he wasted during this trial. We need to keep pushing that. Obviously, my first goal is to keep pushing Sandra's case, but getting Michael Morrissey out of office helps Sandra's case, because maybe a new district attorney will push to get her death changed to homicide instead of suicide. I mean, I'm not saying like to pressure in like a negative way, like how DeChico and Proctor were joking about pressuring the medical examiner. I mean, for them to sit down with all the heads of the departments and sit down and have a conversation and say, have you guys done a review of the autopsy? That's something that they could do. I fully agree, and that's something I've been thinking about. A crime and corruption commission is required to oversee the police and public service. I fully agree. As Jen Root likes to say, they can't investigate themselves. And if the Massachusetts State Police are investigating like the Canton Police or the Stoughton Police, They're still investigating themselves. They work with these officers. The DA's office works with them, so they're still investigating themselves. It needs to be a they could have. I'm not against having investigators on the task force, but it needs to be public people from the public too. Yes and no, Barb, but the post commission is more to look at what a police officer did wrong and to decide whether or not they should have their license. A corruption board would be more to look at how the investigation went and see if an officer needs to be charged. It would be more of making criminal. The post commission can refer give their findings over to like a district attorney or the attorney general, but a commission would be the ones investigating the whole crime. The post commission more is just about licensing and seeing what an officer did. It's not investigating the whole case. And that, like John O'Keefe's case, needs to be investigated. What were missed? What was missed? What didn't they do? I mean, we know a lot of it from watching the trial, but a commission needs to delve into that, officially delve into it, well, if a commission was put forth, a civilian, like New York City, I believe, has a civilian complaint commission where they investigate a crime, like something that happens, and to see if there should be charges. And it would be taken out of Michael Morrissey's hands. They would have to put a judge on there, and a judge could have subpoena power to take everything that Michael Morrissey has on a certain case. So they would be able to walk in that office and take everything that Michael Morrissey has on the John O'Keefe case. They would be able to walk into Canton Police Department and take everything that they have on the case. Like, take what's going on with Robert Devine. They were having issues getting, and in the civil case, Sandra's civil case, they're having problems getting everything they need from the Massachusetts State Police. And in this instance, they wouldn't be able to. I mean, technically, the judge has said you have to, an independent commission. So technically, the judges made rulings saying they have to turn it over, and they're still not. So it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So I want to talk about my feelings on Karen's case. Let me just bring something up just to kind of have in the background. I hope I don't get emotional. That's why I didn't put I didn't put any like eyeliner on my lower eyes. I don't put mascara on my lower eyes anymore because of that reason. But give me 1 second. Okay. Okay. Let me do the screen. Okay. My little sign that I made says Karen FRead. And we're going to watch a little bit of the video. I know most of you have seen it, but I want to play a little bit and give my feelings on it. For those who don't know, I was able to meet Karen. I was able to meet Nathan and Kelly when we did a standout, I would say more of a rally at the State House last September. And I was able to talk to them for a little while. And, they told me how much they support what we're doing for the Justice for Sandra Birchmore group. Hey, Scott, before I keep going, Scott, you are awesome. Thank you so much for holding that Sandra sign. I know it's always with you, but, you know, that was awesome. And, you know, you touched my heart, you know, with all the footage, you know, for the media and, you know, people out there, you know, people got to see that sign and see her face and see her name. And I really appreciate it because you have been there a lot for, you know, when it comes to Sandra, and it means the world to myself and Barb that, you know, Sandra was there. Yeah. You know, I saw every time it panned around and I saw it, I was like, oh, Scott. And I like, my mom and I were watching and we were like, I'm like, Mom, that's Scott. He always has her sign. I'm so glad he brought it into the buffer zone. Well, at that point, it wasn't really a buffer zone anymore, but you know, I absolutely appreciate you for that. And thank you. So what I was saying, so back last September when we did the State House, I got to talk to them for a little while, and you know, they were so gracious, and they were so supportive of the work that myself and Barb are doing, and they extended their hand, saying, you know, if you ever need anything, please let our family know. You know, we see you and see all the work, the hard work that you're doing, and you know what you guys are doing is amazing, and to keep pushing and keep fighting for Sandra, and that meant a lot to me. And so I got to meet the rest of the family a few 2 months later, and you know, I got to actually spend a little time with Karen. It was at a party, and luckily where we were, we got this few minutes, myself, Annie, and Karen, to have a conversation. And it was, I mean, Karen was so gracious and kind. Like, Annie and I were coming from the restroom and we were walking back into the big room, and Karen was talking with some people, and she, you know, saw me, and like when we saw each other, we were both just like, and she ran over to me and we like embraced, and I thanked her. I said, thank you for fighting. I said, and not taking a deal. I said, because you fighting made it easier for me to fight for Sandra. I said, because we are fighting the same people. And, you know, I said a couple other things, and then Karen, you know, just said, that motherfucker, I'm glad he's in jail. I'm glad they got him. And I was like, I was dying laughing, and, you know, we both chuckled about it. And it was really nice to be able to finally say that to her, because I've wanted to say it to her for a long time. You know, Barb and I are, you know, I might be the face of the Justice for Sandra Birchmore group, but Barb is like, you know, she's standing next to me even when she isn't. You know, she's always been there beside me, and to work hard to get justice for Sandra. And, you know, as AJ likes to say, we ain't got no quit. We are going to continue. But I am so I'm going to say this at the beginning, because this is one of the things that makes me emotional beyond just, you know, Karen. It gets me emotional. I don't know. It's just this weird little thing. So, as we were talking about earlier, light blue is Sandra's color. And I've kind of used this metaphor that Sandra proves the corruption in Karen's case, and Karen's case proves the corruption in Sandra's case, and you know, they both prove the corruption in Juston's case, and then Juston's, so it's like a Ferris wheel of corruption. And you know, Karen's team fought pretty hard to be able to bring Sandra into their case. And, you know, even them speaking Sandra's name in court, like, meant the world to me. And I knew that why they were doing it. They had already filed before it was argued, because that filing sat there for a long time. Barb, you're gonna make me cry even more. Mizzy helped me when I needed it the most. She knew what to do to keep Sandra's case alive. Thank you, Barb. You know, they tried to bring Sandra's case in there to prove the point of the corruption. And of course, Bev wouldn't allow it in. I've heard some lawyers say it should have been in. I've heard, you know, a lawyer that comes on our page, he said it shouldn't have been in. I personally think it should have been in because it shows how these two cases were handled. Thank you. Thank you. And so for them, even, you know, with all eyes on them, with the world watching, for them to mention Sandra's case, you know, touched my heart in general. But I knew why they were doing it, because they were trying to show, to introduce to the public that this isn't a one-off, that this has happened in another high profile case involving police officers. So when they tried to introduce it, and then when Brennan got up there and spewed his bullshit, and I'm not even going to really dignify him with anything, but it was just BS, the crap he was saying. Especially, it was a different time, but especially the other time he got up and when they were trying to do the motion to dismiss, when he got up there and talked about Fanning like he was the most amazing person who ever amazinged on this planet. Like, I'm like, dude, you don't even know. So when I saw Karen walking in light blue, her decision to wear light blue that day was probably just, oh, I like this. I'm going to wear it. But she was wearing Sandra in with her. Those were Sandra's color. And after those not guilty verdicts were read, after I bawled for a while, I yelled, these motherfuckers did not get to pin it on the other girl, because they tried to pin Sandra's murder on herself. That's why they called it suicide. They tried to pin everything on Karen. They tried to pin it on both of these women. And this jury said no. And the FBI said no. So whenever I see the photos or the video, excuse me, of Karen in light blue, you know, she wasn't able to bring Sandra into the courtroom to help her fight against the corruption, to prove the point of the corruption. But she was able to bring Sandra into the courtroom with her so she could hear not guilty. As I've said before, we were able to, like I said, the Ferris wheel of, you know, Karen's corruption proves Sandra's corruption and Justin's corruption. It's a Ferris wheel of corruption. Karen fighting against these people made it easier for me to fight. You know, when Turtle Boy came out with his article, we had already been a page for, I had already been working on Sandra's case, and we were really trying to ramp up and get Sandra's story out there. And when I found out there was an article released on Karen's case, well, there's actually, I think his name is Jonathan Bowman. He's actually, I think, might be from Stoughton. He released a TikTok saying that Turtle Boy was talking about Karen Reed and Sandra Birchmore. And I was kind of like, because his Turtle Boy's early take on Sandra Birchmore, he didn't think she did it. I mean, he thought she did it to herself. But, you know, he's admitted that he was wrong. And he fully believes that Matthew Farwell did it. He knows that. And when I saw that post, I was like, let me go check it out. And I read the article, and I watched that live, the first live he did when stuff was starting to blow up. And, you know, as Karen, as Free Karen Reed was starting to ramp up, we were like walking behind it. And I just shouted Scott out. Scott was one of the Free Karen readers who was talking about Sandra repeatedly in chat rooms. And that helped me make it easier for me to be able to say, hey guys, Sandra Birchmore, you guys need to look at it because it's the same people. Michael Morrissey, you know, it's the same Massachusetts State Police unit. She was murdered a year before John was, and it happened in Canton. You guys need to take a look at this, you know, and people were slowly starting to, but because Karen's case was getting bigger, I like to say I was able to grab onto her skirt and hang on for dear life to push Sandra's case out there. And I'm glad that, you know, they feel the same way I do, that the both cases are connected in that way. So I was able to get my face out there and get on some shows. You know, Barb and I were able to utilize people starting to come over. We were able to, hey, Joe. Joe is one of our early supporters on our page. You know, he was one of the first people who came to our page to join up, and you know, he's been there ever since. We were able to, you know, utilize, and we have people like Joe and Scott and a bunch of other people who were starting to talk about Sandra's case along with Karen and John's case. And obviously Karen's case blew up, and then Sandra's case started slowly building. And I was able to start getting on shows, and the tide started turning. I got on Young Jerks, and then I got on LTL and The Glare, and I started going on a ton of shows. And that's where, you know, like people were really starting to say, oh, wait a minute, there's something here. This is different from the people who were just coming to us saying, oh, look at my case, just to look at the case. No, we were proving that there's something wrong in Norfolk County. It wasn't just Karen Reed, this defendant, trying to say that there was something wrong with this case. There was this other side of it. No, there's something wrong in Norfolk County. Let me see what Scott just said. Now that Karen Reed case is over, whoops, I gotta scroll up because I can't read it off the computer. Now that the Karen Reed case is over, it ain't over. The corruption runs high to the top of the tower of corruption in Massachusetts. A.G. Campbell, Governor Healy are a part of it, of the evil. I agree. You know, the fact that when Enrique was murdered, you know, and I'm going to say murdered, that's my own opinion. The fact that they were he was one of their own, and they were so standoffish and they were so timid about their speeches or comment on the case, just shows like if they can't even, if they can't come out with force for Officer John O'Keefe and Trooper Enrique Delgado Garcia, they don't give a shit about the little people. They don't give a shit about any of us. It's all about power. And all power corrupts. When people forget about the people who they serve and talk about the power and only want to, their only goal is to keep the power that they have, it's not good for us. It's not good for the community. That's when they need to leave. And that's why I think as a group going forward, Free Karen Read and all of us, the Justice for Sandra Birchmore group will definitely help push it out there, need to focus on getting Michael Morrissey out of office. Because he thinks, oh, Karen, it's going to all go away. Karen's gone. No, this isn't going away. Because Sandra Birchmore is still going to be there. The Justice for Sandra Birchmore group will still be going to his office doing standouts. We'll still be in Stoughton doing standouts. We will still be going to Canton for standouts. We are not going away because we ain't got no quit. So back to Karen being acquitted, I admittedly cried like a baby. I was so happy for Karen, so happy for her family, but happy for justice, the truth. The truth mattered, and the people who are anti-Karen Read, this is what I'd like to say to you. If you're anti-Karen Read and you're angry because she got off, you need to go talk to the Massachusetts State Police in Michael Morrissey's office. Because if Karen was guilty, which I don't believe she was, I feel she was innocent. That's why I'm happy Karen was freed. If you feel that she was guilty, you need to go to them as your elected officials, or even somebody who lives in Massachusetts, and even if you're not, even if you're from outside, you need to tell them it's your fault because you did not do an adequate investigation. If Karen was so guilty, why didn't they do an adequate investigation? Why did they allow, the taillight pieces? A normal police department investigation, they would have never left that crime scene open. There would have been officers from every jurisdiction at that crime scene. They would have had that area shoveled out that morning. Just the what was done in her case, the mistakes over and over and over again would have never happened. And if you feel that Karen got off, you know who to go yell at. Canton Police, the Massachusetts State Police, and Michael Morrissey, because they are the ones who fucked up this investigation. They're the ones who let John O'Keefe and his family down. If you truly feel that Karen is guilty, I don't. I knew from the second that I saw there was no blood on that ground except droplets. I knew that he was moved. You know how I know? Because a case that I cover, Brandon Emery, he had a similar wound to the back of his head. And he laid there for hours too. Hours. But he laid there. Brandon Emery laid there for hours. And there's an imprint of how much blood there was. There would have been at least somewhat that amount of blood. Yes, it would have been a little different because Brandon wasn't in as quite a cold of an environment as John supposedly was in. but there still would have been a lot of blood. And the second I saw how much blood was there, I knew. And then the arm wounds, I was like, there's no way. They're not, something's going on here. And I choose to think that Karen is innocent and was framed. But if you are somebody out there who thinks that she is guilty, the only people to blame that she wasn't convicted, it's not the jurors. It's not the jurors. It's Michael Morrissey, Trooper Proctor, Tully, Buchanan, and all the Massachusetts State Police that let John O'Keefe down, if you think she was guilty. And it's the Canton Police Department who let John down. So those are the people you need to go make complaints to and need to be angry with. Fanning. Fanning and all of them. Fanning is a piece of shit. You know, whenever I'm in a chat, for, like if I'm in Glare or LTL, whenever somebody says Fanning, I say, fuck Fanning, because he's a piece of shit. And he is, you know, he shows that it's not just Michael Proctor, it's not just Buchanan, it's Fanning, it's Dunn, and it's the whole group of them. The rot needs to be cut out. And the fish rots from the head, and that's Michael Morrissey. He needs to be gone. The people of Norfolk County need to get him out because he is not protecting you. They let Matthew Farrell stay on the streets for 3.5 years. A murderer and a child rapist was on the streets for 3.5 years, and they knew this. Yes, Trooper Garino missed those text messages. Yes, he's just as incompetent as the rest. But Fanning had those text messages on Sandra's devices, and he went through them. He even says it in one of the reports. So he had those 32,000 plus text messages. He knew what Matthew Farrell was saying to Sandra Birchmore. Don't let them fool you. Don't let them fool you. Don't let them gaslight you. Now that your eyes are open, don't close them again. And you got to keep them open for other cases. So when you see something happen on your TV screen, on the news, whether it's here, Massachusetts, you know, anywhere in New England, anywhere in the United States, anywhere across the world, when you see something happen, look into it. Yes, we need to work with our police departments. We need to support our police departments, but we also need to call them out, and we need to correct issues that happen with them. Just because the police are saying something happened a certain way doesn't mean it did, as we can clearly see in these two of these cases. What happened to Sandra Birchmore and what happened to John O'Keefe should never happen again. Not just in Norfolk County, in Massachusetts, in New England, throughout the world. This should not be happening. Especially when they're covering up crimes for other police officers. As Jen Root said in her sign, they can't investigate themselves. I don't have all the answers. I know you don't have all the answers, but that's what we need to do, is work together to try to come up with solutions that we want put forth. Because that's the only way things are changed. And the only other way things are going to change is if police start working with us to change the culture. You know, and people think progress doesn't happen. Look at Canton. They've been dealing with, you know, Sandra's situation was kind of suppressed, but since John O'Keefe's murder got bigger and bigger, and Karen's case got bigger and bigger, and then Sandra's got bigger and bigger. They've been dealing with this for a long time. They got 2 select board members out, and they got rid of the Canton police chief. There can be progress, but we, the public, have to be the checks and balances on them. We have to. It's right, Bruzy. No checks, no balances only leads to looking the other way. And that also falls on us. We can't look the other way. Now, I ask people, now that your eyes are open, you cannot close them. You cannot, because that's where, that think back to the iceberg. We see what's on top of the water, but it's what is brewing underneath in the darkness, in the cold, in the darkness. It festers. And as we see in these 2 cases, actually 3 cases, just on case 2, we can't allow it to keep happening. And we, the people, need to take that back. We, the people, need to stand up. And we, the people, need to make sure that we continue to stand up for our neighbors. And it's not about red and blue. It's about power. The people who are Republicans, independents, and Democrats in Massachusetts. Yes, the Democratic Party runs Massachusetts, but this isn't just Massachusetts. There are red states this shit is happening in. There are blue states. It's happening all over. The cases I've covered, covered 3 red states, a purple state, and I think 2 blue states. And it's all my cases have had corruption. Yeah, exactly, Eric. Craig Casey, we need to all start looking, really do a deep dive into Craig Casey's case. We need to figure out exactly what happened in his case. How does a man get into a car accident, and them not find the body? And they were just like, oh, we don't know where he is. Let's just clear the scene. What? Are you kidding me? Did they even go to his address? And see if maybe he was there? Did they investigate at all? Or, because did they take any extra steps? I don't know the answers to these questions, but that case is messed up. And I here don't know all the answers to Craig Casey's case. When I have some time, I don't know when it will be. I would love to do a dive into his case, or I would love to listen to somebody do a dive into his case. Massachusetts top government will just minimize and continue to excuse Matthew Farwell. The mainstream media will spin it all. The news, even if Farwell is convicted in federal court, will be yeah. I fully agree with you. Only one thing, there are some partners that I've made in some local people, but in mainstream media outside of Massachusetts, say Banfield. Banfield is on top of Sandra's case. I wasn't able to go on them because I was sick when the DNA thing came out. So it's Sandra's case. I don't think they'll some of the public partners out there, but I agree. There is a big problem with mainstream media. Mainstream media, and I'll take it to local news. Local news is more worried about pissing off, say, Morrissey. Why aren't they doing a deep dive into how much he spent? Why aren't they doing these things? Scott, I have my glasses on, and I can't. It's because it's weird. I can't, I have to wear reading glasses. And if I had the screen on my TV, I'd be able to read it perfectly fine. That's why I always have to lean in and go look like an old lady, huh? What is that saying? But I could read, at a distance, and I could read, perfectly. but the computer screen is just, it's small, so it's not, like TV size letters, and it's just far enough away where I can't fully, like, the words get mushed together, or letters, I should say. The mainstream media, like, they, especially local news, and this happens in every jurisdiction from the cases I worked in, I've learned how bad it is. The mainstream media is more worried, especially local news. They're more worried about pleasing and being in good with the district attorneys and the police departments than doing their job. I mean, kind of look at what happened with Ted Daniel. And he was only able to really get into Karen's trial as an alternate. He hardly, I think there was 1 week, I saw him in there the full week. I think it's because he was being punished for that expose he did with Karen. So, like, police departments and DAs punish media outlets. I have this guy that I did an interview with. He's out in Arizona now, but he used to be, I can't remember. He might have been with the Enterprise. And I think Barb spoke to him too, maybe. And he did a lot of coverage on the corruption in Stoughton years ago, like back in 2000. And because there was a huge scandal in Stoughton back then. And he was punished because he was hitting them so hard. Robert Devine and some of the other people at the top started punishing him when he was putting out bad press for them. He was just putting out the truth. And they were pissed because Barb, it might have been when you weren't really speaking, because it was a while ago. It was well before, I think it was before it might have been either before Dr. Bodden or right after Dr. Bodden came out. But they are so, they want to stay in good with the DAs and the police so they can get their stories. Well, it shouldn't work like that. The way media has changed so much is they placate so they can keep the stories, so they can have the connections. And it's wrong because they're not getting out the truth. They're given these fluff pieces. I feel like once Matthew was arrested, when Dr. Bodden came out, and then when Matthew Ferraro was arrested, I feel like the local news felt it was safe to poke their heads out of the dirt. I got to give Boston 10 some credit. Once Dr. Bodden came out, and they might have come to one of our standouts before Dr. Bodden came out, but once Dr. Bodden came out, they were like, we're going to stay on this story. And they have come to a lot of our standouts, but nobody else was coming. And it's like, you have 3 police officers who did this to a young woman, and one of them went on to murder her. She was in a program where they were her mentors, and they did this to her, and nobody was talking about it. Like, the Boston Globe was the only one talking about it. The Boston Globe was very consistent on talking about this. The Boston Globe is the one who broke the story back in 2022, long before I was on the story. They broke it in early 2022 because her cousin went to, not Barbara, different cousin, went to the Boston Globe telling them, listen, there's something here. And they've looked into it and they put out the story. But so many news outlets just stayed back, and it's like, wait a minute. And even after, like, this is when I came onto the story. Even after September of 2022, I think it was around the 21st or 22nd is when the Stoughton report dropped. And they covered it. News out in the Boston, it was all over the Boston News, all the papers, all the, Channel 5, Channel 7, Channel 10, Boston 10, all of them. And they all came out, because she did a press conference, Chief McNamara, and they covered it for like 2 days. and then it just fluttered away. And I'm like sitting here, I'm like, I'm trying to keep up with it, and what's going on with the story. And it's just like my brain was like, am I in a bizarre world? Am I somewhere? Am I crazy? Because nobody's talking about this. There's 3 officers. This was when they were saying she killed herself. So they were saying 3 officers sexually abused this young woman, and nobody's talking about it. And back then it was like, well, I personally didn't think she did it, but even we were saying, like, even if she did, it was because of them. And this story just went away. And I was like, why isn't this story national? Why isn't this a national story? It should have been like on all outlets. It should have been like on, People magazine and Good Morning America and all those shows. And it was just buried. And that makes me wonder if it was that, or the press just was like, okay, yeah, and moved on. I agree with what you guys are saying about the Boston Globe. There's, especially in the Karen Reed case, there were some reporters that did some stuff, but Laura Grimaldi has been on Sandra's case since they found out. And Laura Grimaldi, so if Laura Grimaldi ever calls you and asks you a question, she's good. She's the salt of the earth, and she will dig. She's one of the good ones. Like I said, she's been on her story for a long time. Right now we're talking about how media downplayed a lot of stuff. Scott. Stone Police Chief McNamara always disappointed me. She covered to the huge political pressure. Oh, caved to the huge political pressure of the police state above her. Sorry, she should have arrested her pedal officers. Yeah, I agree. There was a lot of stuff that was in her hands. I think sadly they looked at, and I'm not trying to defend her, because I think there's a lot, some of the stuff happened under her. A lot of the abuse that was going on when Sandra was younger happened under the previous police chief. And but half of the stuff that continued to as Sandra as an adult was under her watch. And I go back with things like her calling for the investigation the next day was kind of game changer in Sandra's case. It's something she should have done. She should have absolutely have done. Any police chief should have done it. But if she didn't get that, we wouldn't know what happened. Like, Sandra's case would totally be buried right now. We wouldn't be talking right now. I wouldn't be pushing Sandra's case. Barb would just be wondering what happened to her cousin. Like, so I commend her for that portion of her leadership. It was also partly self-preservation, because they needed to cut their cancer out. They needed to get ahead of all this stuff. They needed to be able to say, this wasn't us, this was them. But I don't feel like they did enough. I don't feel like I feel like there should have been more investigation into the explorers portion. So I just commend her on that portion. but I feel like there's a lot more that they can do. The thing, Scott, that I've heard, but like with that, one of the things that came out with one of the good things that came out with the Canton police audit, they said the local jurisdiction should absolutely should have continued to investigate John O'Keefe's death. So, I mean, if that's the case, Stoughton should have continued to investigate Sandra's death and the abuse that occurred with Sandra. So if that portion of that, I mean, you got to take it with a grain of salt, because they were asses and they didn't, do what they should have done. They never really fully deep dived into that police department in Canton. But if that's true, she should have maybe continued to investigate the abuse portion of Sandra's case. I do know that they took all their findings and turned it over to the Massachusetts State Police, and the Massachusetts State Police decided not to go forth with any charges. And under Michael Morrissey, they decided to not do it. But I agree. There was more. I feel like there's more that the Stoughton Police Department should have done. Absolutely. I mean, they should have put a stop to all this. This never should have happened under them. There shouldn't have been an environment where they were able to abuse a young woman like Sandra, and that's why I feel they didn't go far enough. There should have been more oversight. If there was more oversight, this never would have happened. Hold on. I know Barbie answered your question, but I want to address it. I know Barbie answered your question, but I want to answer it to the whole group. No, I never knew Sandra. I was just I was covering other cases, so I was already, doing what I'm doing now. It's just Sandra's is like on a hyper speed, on a larger level than anything I was doing before. I'm just a citizen who saw it on the news and was irate. And I'm somebody who I was working on other cases and I didn't have, at the moment, I didn't have the time, unfortunately, to do a deep dive, but I was looking, always looking for like an article or, was there anything new that came out? I was looking for stuff and by happenstance, my friend Sarah, whose son Brandon Emery was murdered, she had just listened to the Case podcast, because the guys from the Case had actually gone down and spoken to her about Brandon's case. And then Sandra's case happened and they jumped on that because it's a local story. I believe that's part of the reason why they jumped on it. And she came to me and she's like, "What's up with that Sandra Birchmore case?" And I was shocked that she knew about it because her case had been buried. And she was like, she told me about the podcast. I was like, "Oh, I'll have to take a listen." She said to me, "Hey, we need to do a deep dive." And I said, "I've been looking into the case, I haven't done I haven't jumped in. And that's where it all started. Her and I started looking into the case. I did a couple FOIA requests. And, Sarah, to her credit, thought I could do it. And she said to me, "Hey, I have to get back to Brandon's case because Brandon's case is still unsolved." And she said, "If you do the Facebook page, I'll do a petition because the petition's easy to run." And I thought for a second, because I knew if I took Sandra's case on, I was going to have to jump in. And I jumped in and I made the Facebook page. Me and Barb connected. I actually, it's funny with Barb because I messaged, Sandra's page was locked to me, I could see some pictures, and I could see people who commented on those pictures. And I messaged everyone, and Barb was the only one who got back to me. And that's where Barb and I's relationship began, and it's been a great partnership. We work hard to make sure that Sandra's story keeps getting out there, and that that we put out the truth, and we want to make sure Sandra's honored in this. We don't want Sandra's name to be just associated with what happened to her. She was a full person, so we want to make sure that her full story is told, not just this, what happened to her, and how she died. And now it's been what, 2.5 years, closing in on 3 years. No, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I started it in February, end of February, I believe, or March 1st. So it's about 2.5 years. And like I said, we're not done. There's a lot more to still do in Sandra's case. Just because Matthew's arrested and he's sitting in a federal jail doesn't mean anything. There's a lot more to her case, and there's a lot more people who need to be arrested for what happened to Sandra. Barb. God sent Mizzy my way. She's been a great support, helper, warrior, but most of all, I consider her to be a fantastic friend, and I feel the same. I feel the same, Barb. People don't understand that the Justice for Sandra Birchmore group wouldn't be the same if I didn't have Barb there. She was there to tell me information about the family and the family dynamics, so I can personalize Sandra and tell Sandra's story with conviction. I could say, hey, I know this to be true because I have family telling me. I had like an in that a lot of people didn't have when they were talking about Sandra's case. And, I'm to take what Scott just said in parentheses, an in your face kind of person. I'm not happy that I'm sick, that I have health issues, but I'm kind of glad I do, because if I didn't, I would be a lot more aggressive, and I would probably have, some charges like Turtle Boy. And I'm not joking when I say that. That's my personality. I'm an in-your-face kind of person. I'm an outspoken person. And I would be driving. I can't drive because of my migraines. I would be down in Canton and Stoughton every day, after work, before work, so it's kind of good that we were able to wage it on online and build it, because I did have a state trooper tried to intimidate me. And, I think it would be worse if I was down there. But back to Karen, what my feelings on her. I'm so thankful that the jury saw what a lot of us saw, and that she was found not guilty. And I mean, of course, she would rather not have the DUI or OUI, but if that's what she has to take, that's all she got as a punishment out of this. Karen is so relieved. That you could tell the relief on her face and her family's face. And, they have been very kind and welcoming and supportive when it comes to me in general, and also the Justice for Sandra Birchmore group. And, they've extended their support to all of us. And I'm just elated that Karen was found not guilty. And like I said at the beginning of when I started talking about it, when I saw her in light blue, it felt like that Sandra was with her. And I have a funny story, and I don't even know if I told you this, Barb. Something was happening, and like sometimes I'll say, I'll be like, Sandra, what should I do? How should I play this? I was kind of having one of those moments a few weeks ago, and I went out on my porch and I was like holding my phone, and I was like, I don't, what should we do about this? How should we handle this? I don't even remember what the situation was. And I said, like I sometimes say, I say, Sandra, how should I handle this? What do you think? And then all of a sudden, this, it was a bird probably about the size of a water bottle. It flew down, and it had these light blue wings, and it was a beautiful bird. It was black, and it had like a lighter color blue wings. And I was just like, whoa. And I said, hi, Sandra. And then the bird sat there for a good minute or so, and then it flew away. And I said, okay, I know how to handle this. And that bird has come back a few times, and I've never seen that bird before. I mean, I live in the woods, so we get tons of different kinds of birds, hawks, and, we get blue jays and crows and blackbirds, and we get hummingbirds, my little friends. But I've never seen that bird before, and it's come back a few times. So I just say, when I see it, I say, hi, Sandra. I just thought I'd share that. Like I said, I don't know if I told Barb that. Okay, I wasn't sure. Well, it's not like a blue jay. It's just, I don't know what kind. I gotta look it up and see what kind of bird it is. I'll let you know what kind of bird it is. It was just weird. There was another time, my spirit animal are hawks. They used to appear to me all the time, and I thought they were like against me, but then I realized that they were my spirit animal. And there was one day I was having a hard day, and I was trying to figure out something that had to do with Sandra's case. This was a while ago, so I don't even know what was going on. And all of a sudden, a hawk appeared to me. It was sitting on a branch, a low branch, like this big tree that we have in the neighbor's house right across from me. And it was just sitting there, and we were basically both staring at each other. And it was like it was appearing to me to tell me the right way to go. And I found clarity in that moment. I knew what I had to do. So, yes, I believe in spirit animals and stuff like that. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to look it up. I'll let you guys next live I do. If it's a bluebird, it possibly could be. I got a funny story for you. So in the early spring, in spring and in like early summer, blackbirds don't like hawks. Thanks for coming in, Scott. Your presence is always welcome, and I thank you. It was good to see you, and thank you again for holding that sign. Thank you. I forgot what I was saying. We have these blackbirds don't like hawks, because hawks will take over their territory. So when baby hawks start going out to go out, blackbirds, well, even big hawks, but they're more afraid of the big hawks, fully grown hawks. So groups of blackbirds will attack little baby hawks. And I can do this like whistle that sounds like a hawk. And so it always happens when I'm walking my dog, I'll see them start attacking the baby hawks, and I'll do this whistle, and the blackbirds will fly away because they think it's the mama hawk coming to save them. No, I think it was all black. I never saw the belly really. I saw black underneath, like the wings were like they weren't like light blue, but they were a lighter shade of blue. And all I saw was black, but I didn't see the actual, because the bird's back was to me. And I think I think the second time I saw it was a side view, but it wasn't like a full, like it was like a kitty corner inside view. So I wasn't able to see the front of it. Hopefully it'll appear to me at the, facing me next time, but I'll look it up. I'll let you know when I look it up. But as I'm not even going to get into playing, Karen's video, because you guys have all seen it. But I'm so happy that Karen was freed. And it's not over for her. She's going to have a long haul, but at least this part isn't hanging over her head. They can't retry her. They can't, this portion of her persecution is over. She's going to have to go through the civil trial. And I wouldn't be surprised if she started suing some people herself. But life in prison isn't being held over her, and I'm thankful for that. That's fine, Barb. I'm not going to stay on much longer because it's really starting to get hot up in here. And I don't want to when we did the standout a few weeks ago, I didn't drink enough water and I got kind of a little bit of sunstroke, and I was dehydrated when I got home, and it took me a long time to recuperate. So I don't want to end up in that position like I did last time. But as I was saying, I'm so happy that Karen is freed, and my support for her will continue. And I hope at some point her and I can have another conversation and talk a little more. But, I'm in contact with her cousin Kelly, and, I love her mom. I love her brother. I love her dad, but I didn't really get to spend much time talking to her dad. He's really nice, but I'm so, Karen was so gracious to me. And I'm so happy for her and her family and all the supporters that worked very hard to get Karen's story out there. And, it was my honor to be able to go on shows and help raise some money for her. And it was my honor to, when I went on shows talking about Sandra's case, we talked about Karen's case also. And, I was always in Sandra Birchmore advocacy, but, I was also pushing for Karen. And, I got to go to some standouts for Karen. And I'm glad I wasn't able to make it down. Barb, thank you so much for coming and helping. Yeah, our website, I don't have it up. I'll drop it in the chat too. Our website is justiceforsandrabirchmore.com. Make sure you check that out. We have all the reports up there if people want to read them. Barb, Sandra's cousin, she's awesome. And, she's worked just as hard as I have for Sandra. We do this together. So, yeah. Please make sure you guys, before we end this, and I'll end it in a couple minutes, I want to do at least a full hour, 2 hours. Make sure you hit the like. And if you're not subscribed, please come subscribe. My channel's slowly starting to grow. And the more people who subscribe helps me get her story out to more people. Again, I will have a show on Tuesday morning for Joshua Heel. Thank you. And thank you. And thank you for you, thank you to all of you. It's not just Barb and myself in this. It's all of you here, all of you who share her story, all of you who like when we post something, all of you who retweet it or share it on whichever social media you're on. it's, the people who run pages, like, we're only as successful as you guys joining in and helping us. It's not about me, it's not about Barb, it's about Sandra and getting her story out there. And we want to continue pushing her story out there. That's one of the reasons why I started doing lives, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to go on other people's shows because of the Karen Reed trial. And I also wanted to start showing you guys some of the other cases I've worked on, and to show you guys that it's not a one-off. John O'Keefe and Sandra and Justin in these cases are not one or two or three offs. It's not just a few cases here. This happens in a lot of jurisdictions. So, and we appreciate all of you, because you guys have helped us, to push Sandra's story out there. Like, take Boozy, she's done some TikToks on Sandra. I tried to reply to one of them the other day, but my thing wasn't working. It kept saying error. I'm like, I got to come back. So I rebooted my phone, so I forgot to go back and reply to one of your stories you did the other day. But I appreciate that, Boozy. Thank you for pushing her story out there. It's a, to elevate somebody's story it's all hands on deck. I'm only as good as, the people who are listening and taking what I'm saying and pushing it out there further. Yeah. And I mean, Mark Betterow, my phone was blowing up the last 2 days. And I hope that once he's done reading those reports, that I can get him on the show. It was always my, after the Karen Reed trial was over, it was always my intention to reach out to him to come on at some point. But I wanted to get past the Karen Reed trial because, everybody was focused on it, and I was focused on her trial too, so does anybody have any more questions about Sandra's case before we head off? Thank you, Boozy. I appreciate that. Let me see if I can find it. I'm new here. Can you give a brief recap on what you're doing or your cause? I would love to support. Yeah. Do you know? No, I won't even ask it. I'll just give a quick, like a 2-minute synopsis of Sandra's case. Sandra was born in Boston. She grew up in Stoughton, Massachusetts. When she was about 9, she went through a program through the Stoughton school system. It was for parents and children having a better way to connect and to resolve issues within their household. And then when Sandra was about 12, her mother enrolled her in the Stoughton Police Explorers program that was put on by the Stoughton, Massachusetts Police. And that's where Sandra met Matthew Farwell, William Farwell, and Robert Devine. Robert Devine was the head of the program, and the Farwells were both visiting and helping instructors to come in and help him. They were also former explorers, so that's why they were really familiar with the group. Sandra started being groomed by these officers, and this continued until Sandra was 15, where Matthew Farwell began sexually assaulting her. And the abuse by Matthew Farwell continued until she was 23, where he went on to murder her. William Farwell and Robert Devine also started abusing Sandra. They also continued until she was 23, until she died. Matthew Farwell has been the only one that has been proven that it was when she was 15, when she was underage, as far as we know at the moment. And then, like I said, on February 1st, 2021, Matthew Farwell crept into Sandra's apartment. He strangled her, and posed her body to make it look like she did it to herself. And then 28 minutes later, he left her apartment. And a few days later, the Canton Police Department went for a wellness check and found Sandra's body. And that's where it started, the myth of Sandra murdering herself, and by them calling it suicide. And the Massachusetts State Police took over the investigation, and they further on went on to cover up the murder of Sandra Birchmore. They still continue to call it a murder. Call it a suicide. The medical examiner still calls it a suicide. Fast forward till August 28th, 2024. Matthew Farwell was arrested by the FBI for murdering a witness against him. He was charged for the murder of Sandra Birchmore, and he currently sits in a federal prison awaiting trial. And that's what we're waiting for now, is for Matthew to go to trial. He has a hearing on July 1st, and whether we can get in or not, I'm probably going to go down to the federal courthouse. And I came in after I saw it on the news when the Stoughton internal report came out, and I was irate. I kept looking at her case, and I was wondering what was going on. Why was nobody saying anything? Why was nobody doing anything? In between that, her family filed a wrongful death suit against these officers. The Case podcast came out, and my friend Sarah, whose son Brandon Embry was murdered, approached me and said, "What's up with that Sandra Birchmore case?" I kind of just told that a little while ago. And her and I decided to do a deep dive. I told her I'd been looking into it, but I couldn't find much on it. And then at that point, I hadn't done any FOIA requests. I started doing FOIA requests, and I was reading the report, and like my mind was like, they trafficked her, and like all these things. Like, why aren't these guys in jail? Why is nobody talking about this? And so I created the page, Facebook page, and that's where we started getting to work. And we've been pushing her case out there all along. Yes, he's still in solitary, as far as I know. From what I was told by a prison guard, a former prison guard there, she said that he only comes out to shower. He doesn't take his hour out. He just goes and showers and goes back to his cell. Right now, we're just waiting to find out when the trial is going to be. We don't have a date yet. Thank you, Boozy. Thank you. I've been trying to. I'm a relentless kind of person. I don't give up. I don't let people push me around, and I was not going to stop till something happened in this case. I was always going to keep speaking out. And luckily, I found partners with YouTubers to help me push out her case. I started getting on some news stations, and it obviously helped when Dr. Bodden came out and said it was a homicide, not a suicide. And then Dr. Smock came out with in the FBI affidavit saying that it was a homicide, and that things like her hyoid bone was broken, and there was an impression on her upper chest of the strap that was by, I believe, her right ear, and there was no way there would be an impression here if she did it to herself, and the strap, the buckle being here. And the Massachusetts State Police more than dropped the ball. I think it's more than just negligence. I've never been on Melanie Little, but I've talked to her before. I sent her some of the reports, and but I met her a few months ago, but I haven't been on her show yet. We've kind of talked about it. Maybe now that Karen's over, maybe her and I could do something. Oops. Good question. Were there additional predators who exploited Sandra? Yeah. William Farwell introduced Sandra to a military recruiter. I don't know everything that happened with the military recruiter because it's kind of been black boxed. There was also a former Abington officer who used to be the Stoughton animal control officer. He exchanged oral sex for a cat. And we believe that there are other men. William Farrell, I believe William Farrell was trafficking her. He was introducing her to other men. He's the one who introduced her to these two men. And he would have her send pictures and videos of her sexcapades with these, predators. So I fully believe that there's a lot more people out there. Yes, she's friends with Bettero, and I have. I don't have Melanie's number, but I'm in contact with Bettero. I can get in touch with Bettero easy. I have his number. So. Do you mean a list of Stoughton cops that were involved? Is that your question? Or just a list of Stoughton cops in general? Exactly. They are definitely a bunch of pigs. And not because thank you for joining us. I appreciate you coming in and all your questions. Thank you for taking it in Sandra's case. Everybody who comes, I appreciate all of you who are here tonight. Thank you. I believe most of them knew. I agree, Brucey. I've never gotten a list of all the officers who were there. There are two officers that used to work. I don't remember their names right now. Let's go back to the beginning of Robert Devine's part in this. Robert Devine took over the Explorers group in 2002. In 2001, he was an SRO officer, the perfect man to be working with children. He was an SRO officer. He also worked in that program as part of that program that I had talked about with Sandra being in, the parent. I can't remember the name of the program, where she was about 9 and where her and her mom got to learn how to be a cohesive unit as a family better. He was part of that program. And then he went to be because he was an SRO officer. So in 2021, he started a program, an after-school gym program at the junior. He was an SRO officer in the junior high, which is even worse. So he would he started a program, an after-school gym program, where he would stay after school so kids could play in the gym or hang out in the gym until their parents could pick them up, type deal thing. And that's where he was grooming a young woman who's come out, and he brought her to a back closet and put her up on the desk, and because she had a crush on him, and she was upset that he was getting married, and he told her she's a knockout, and I believe he kissed her on the forehead and all this disgustingness that he shouldn't have been touching her to begin with, and he shouldn't have been talking to her, and he told her, when you turn 18, I'll take you on a date. So he was grooming her. And so he was running that program. And then he took over the Stoughton Police Explorers group, which the Farwell brothers were already in. So that young woman was in the Police Explorers group, and she told me that she believed that the Farwells were groomed by Devine. And looking at everything that made sense, he made them, one was the deputy chief and one was a lieutenant. And they helped run the program with Robert Devine. Robert Devine was the only officer there now. And his wife would come in, who didn't work at this police department. She works at the Quincy Police Department. She would come in and help out sometimes. So he was already around children. He had all this access to children. He groomed the Farwells. That doesn't excuse what they did, but he groomed them. He saw something in them and he showed them his way. And then later they came back and he helped them become Stoughton police officers. And he brought them back into the program, and, William would bring, because they were both in the, I can never remember the actual name, and I should, because me and Jessica were talking about it last night. They were bomb techs, and he would bring equipment to the explorers to show these children, so it made them look cooler. So that's how they got their in. And I believe there are other children. I can't prove that, but there can't be just two girls. There can't be. They were about 10 years apart. They can't be the only ones. They don't go dormant. They just find their next victim. And so it's kind of like the Ferris wheel of corruption. It's the Ferris wheel of abuse, and it just kept going. And unfortunately, Sandra got caught in their web, and she ended up paying the price with her life. And sadly, I feel like Sandra would have always ended up that way, because these men couldn't allow this abuse to come out. That's why when I say with the DNA, yeah, the DNA not being his matters, but in the grand scheme of her murder, it doesn't matter, because he murdered her because she was starting to talk to people. It was more about his secret getting out. It wasn't about the kid. Oh, I agree. It's so much different. And the feds don't arrest you unless they have the case. I don't necessarily think they wanted to arrest him when they did, but they still had the goods. And they're still actively investigating. This case is, like you just said, and that it's hot. It's still hot. It's a live, active case. And I'm hoping it has been expanded. And I'm hoping they're also looking at the corruption in Morrissey's office, because it can't stand. It can't stand. So, he was evil. They recognized it in each other. The words he wrote to that child, she isn't the only one. If you guys have not read the Explorers, the FBI affidavit, you need to go read that. You will need a shower after. But I'm going to drop the link to our reports in the chat. So you guys can go to it. It's easier for me to drop it here. It's, like I said, you'll need a shower after. I recommend, if you want to get the lowdown on everything in Sandra's case, I recommend starting with the Stoughton police report and go down. But if you want to bypass, the Canton reports are really short, so they're easy to get through. The Stoughton report will tell you what this was when it all went down, like when at the beginning when their secret was out and after Sandra was murdered, but when it was still being called a suicide. So that's where I recommend starting. But if you want to read both of them will make you want to take a shower, because it's like, how were these officers able to actively keep acting like this on the job, and some of it was done at the Stoughton Police Department. The grooming was done when she was actively at the Stoughton Police Department. And that's why they're being sued. And that's why the town's being sued. Yeah, that's where I got them. But if people go to that link, we have all those reports. The most important reports are all right there for people to look at. We'll be adding another report soon. But so does anybody else have any questions? I hope I didn't miss any. I kind of tried to scroll up and get them. Just scroll up a little bit. Let me just go. To go to Boozy's point, she was spoken about there. Sandra was there all the time. They knew Sandra. All of the police knew who Sandra was. She was in there a lot, so she befriended some of the female officers. So they, whether they knew or not, they should have all suspected something weird was going on. Why is this girl here all the time? I think I got them all. I think I got them. I didn't. Who? Where did you get that? I didn't see that they reported the abuse to Canton. Boozy, if you have any report or something that says that, can you message me? I can say something that when it comes to her death, that I've had reported multiple times, and the people who it's coming from are law enforcement who talk to other law enforcement. Thank you, KM. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. When Sandra, I've gotten tips from multiple people, and the first person who came to me, it was a police officer who told them, and then I had 2 former law enforcement officers tell me the same thing, and that after Sandra's death, 3 of the 5 Canton police officers who were on the scene didn't agree with Sandra's death being a suicide. They thought it was more. And I started doing FOIA requests. Supposedly they went to Lieutenant Gallagher. Now we know how much a piece of shit he is. And they reported it and said that they didn't agree. And supposedly there was an email sent to either Morrissey's office or Massachusetts State Police saying 3 of our officers don't agree, what's going on. And there's nothing. I FOIA'd Massachusetts State Police. I FOIA'd specifically Morrissey's office and Canton Police. And of course, they're not going to let something like that out because it shows the corruption. And the only officer's name I got was Lank, which I thought was weird if it's Lank, but the people that I've spoken to didn't have the name of the other 2 officers. Now, mind you, 2 other officers left shortly after. So I possibly could be them. I'm not 100% sure. If anybody has any more tips on that, I would love them. If there's anybody watching who has tips, please come. I accept all tips I can get. And I mean, just because you give me a tip doesn't mean I will, put it out there. If you tell me, if it's something I need to look into and try to get the goods on and find out the information, I'll try to do that. If it's, I'll try to vet it, but I will accept as many tips as I can get, because, you know, we're still trying to piece together this jigsaw puzzle. And it's something that we can, you know, pass on to the FBI. If it does, you know, I can give the, you don't have to necessarily give the tip to the FBI. I can pass that along. So. I get on them too, Cam, but mine is usually like, I'm like it looks like I'm playing whack-a-mole because I'm just like everywhere. Yes. Let's talk about Kevin Albert. So Sandra was murdered on the 1st. Her body was found on the 4th. There were 5 officers on the scene on the 4th. Kevin Albert was never there when Sandra was found. On the 6th, so 2 days later, the Canton Police Department went back to retrieve the video feed, the security camera video of Matthew Farrell walking in and out, and it was lank Jonathan McCourt, and Kevin Albert was with them then. He was not on the initial part of the investigation. He was only there the second day they were there, and then the case was turned over to it was fully turned over to the MSP, because yeah, he's the bestest detective they've got. Lord help us if he's the best detective. You know, the guy who leaves his badge and gun, loses it when he's drunk with Proctor. Yeah, that's their bestest detective. Lord help Canton Police Department. I really hope I don't is there any news on who's going to be the police chief of Canton now that what's her face is leaving? Have they picked anybody? Because I really hope they go for somebody outside. Exactly. He hasn't said boo about either case, which on one hand, it's smart. You know, he's not like his brother Chris, who's out there being an ass, showing his ass everywhere. Like, if Chris was smart, he wouldn't have like done half the stuff that he's done. So, but that's what Kevin Albert's involvement has been in the case. After that, the Canton police weren't really on her case. The Massachusetts State Police were the ones doing it, and their investigation was atrocious. So, are you serious? They are such little bitches that they can't do an in-person one. Wow, they are such little bitches. Why can't they face the public? Wow. I'm in Louisiana and connected to some, I can't read it because my eyes are blurry. Coincidences. I'll say to read. Not enough yet, but I may be able to connect via her network, FBI and ICE attention. Oh, that would be nice. If you're in Louisiana, you know about some corruption, because there's been a lot of corrupt cases down there too. I've watched a bunch of stuff on, like, you know, I used to watch the ID network like all the time. Thomas Perkins, retired chief. Oh, wait a minute. Ugh. Do we know anything about him, Eric? Like, was he a good chief there? Huh. Well, at least it's a chief from out of Canton. That's good. But if he's not a good chief, it's just like exchanging one bad apple for another bad apple. Good. I can't wait to see it, Boozy. Boozy likes a deep dive. Yeah, I'd like to know more about him. Because I got to get in contact with him and tell him, I normally would converse with Rafferty when we had a standout that we were going to do. All right, guys, I am starting to get really hot. My hands are starting to swell because it is warm up in this room. I wish my AC wasn't so loud. I wouldn't be able to hear you guys. Yeah, me too. Me too, Boozy. Oh, I'm so glad you came. Thank you. Again, I want to put it out there. I will be starting, not this Monday because it's going to be like 100 degrees. That's why I'm doing tonight. On Monday nights, I'm going to start doing my normal nights about 6:15 or 7 o'clock. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. And then I might do like a second show here and there on Wednesdays or Thursdays. I do have a bunch of streams planned with guests. My first guest, once I get them fully booked, will be Peter Murphy. So we can talk about the Canton Police Department's investigation and how they handled, the initial initial call to go to Sandra's apartment. And then Nan Gallagher agreed to come on. So I'm going to talk to her. And now that Bettero is reading the reports, I'm going to approach him to see if he'll come on. I plan on getting people to come on, psychologists or experts who are in the field of dealing with children who have been abused, to come on and talk about Sandra's case and why, Sandra would have made some decisions that she made, and to talk about what effects grooming has on a person. So those are the oh, thank you, Life Artist. Thank you, everyone. This heart goes to everyone. And the the people who come watch after too. That's for you too. So those are my plans going forward. And I'm also going to start talking about some other cases I worked on. It's good to see you too, Sue. Thank you. And thank you for, all your offering of, to come pick me up to go down to this. Thank you. I appreciate you for that. I just I physically wasn't able to go down there, and I'm glad I kind of wasn't there because there was a lot of people there, and I think my OCD might have been would have went a little haywire, but I don't know. I wish I could have been there. It would have been nice to be there to celebrate with Karen and everybody, to be there with boots on the ground, because you guys who are boots on the ground are awesome, and I've enjoyed my time that I've spent with you down there. And I invite you to come join us over here in Sandra Birchmore land. But yeah, going forward, this is what my plans are. And I also want to pair on other shows like Eric and Boozy's show. I always enjoy coming to talk to you guys. Go on other people's shows because I'm a small creator, and I want to continue putting out Sandra's story, but it also is important to work with my partners that have allowed me to come on their shows to continue to get Sandra's case out there more and more, and to, talk about the updates on Sandra's case. So that is the plan from going forward with A Mixed Girl in a Mixed Up World. There will be a lot of content coming out for me. I mean, like maybe 2 nights a week will be a lot of content for me. And I'm going to start doing TikToks again. So there will be a lot of shorts coming to my page. So there will be a lot of content coming to my page. But it's not going to be all lives. So look out for the shorts, because I can make, smaller bites on there. Got to get back into doing that again, because there's a large audience over there who, they're all invested in the Karen Read case. And I think a lot of them will like to come and look at Sandra's case. Oops. Why is that doing that? Yes. Added opportunity because of her pregnancy, touch on domestic violence and in pregnancy. Yes, that is something that we want to touch upon. That's why I want to get like a psychologist or a therapist or a counselor on to that specializes in more of women who are abused and grooming and stuff like that. Because we did last October, we did for a special thing for Sandra because it ends up being a domestic violence incident. No matter how much we think it's gross and that she thought of him as her boyfriend, but Sandra thought of Matthew as her boyfriend, and he is the one who ended up abusing her and killing her. So it does end up being a domestic violence case also. So thank you, Boozy. I love you too, girl. If you're on TikTok, go follow her because she puts out a lot of content and she does a deep dive on stuff. So she'll definitely be doing a deep dive on the interim police chief if you want to know about them. So if there's no more questions, I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you for joining me. Thank you to all the replay crew who watches after. Again, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Small channel. I need as much, people to subscribe as we can to keep pushing Sandra's case out there. Thank you so much, Jess. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone. My goal is just to keep pushing Sandra's case. That's all I want. And I'm not going to rest till it's not just Matthew Farrell behind bars, till there's other people who are behind bars, because it's not just about Sandra's murder, which that is very important. It's about the abuse that occurred, that was put upon Sandra. So with that being said, I am Izzy. I'm a mixed girl in a mixed up world. Thank you for joining me. I haven't gotten a chance to edit my ending because it should say Karen FRead instead of just free Karen Reed. So I do have to fix that, but I will. So I appreciate everybody being here. Thank you for joining me and have a good night.